Hi, I'm Dara Warland with the News Literacy Project. I'm the Vice President for Digital Media and also the New York Program Manager. And today I'm here with Nicholas Whitaker, who's at Google. And he's going to talk today about better search with Google. And I know many of you are doing lots of different projects for school and doing searches using Google, no doubt, much of the time. And I bet you hear a lot of complaints from your teachers about only doing Google searches and not going beyond Google searches. Well, today Nick is here to talk about how you can use Google to your advantage and also make your teachers happy at the same time. So here we are with Nicholas Whitaker, and he's the Media Outreach Lead on the Google for Media team at Google. So, hi Nick, how are you?
Hi Dara, how are you doing?
I'm good. So, take it away.
Yeah, well, so as you mentioned, my name is Nicholas Whitaker, and I'm the Media Outreach Lead on a team called the Google for Media team. And really our whole role is traveling around the world, training journalists and people that are interested in journalism on all of the various tools that Google has to offer that is useful for telling news stories. We have a website that I just want to draw your attention to right off the bat. If you go to google.com/mediatools, we've created a website as a first stop for people that are interested in journalism or using digital tools for storytelling. And this website is right now going through a version 2. We're in the process of updating it with training tutorials and online modules. So there's going to be an enormous amount of additional information available on that site in a very short period of time. But if you ever have any questions or comments, especially as we're in the process of reconfiguring this particular site, shoot us an email at mediatools@google.com. We love to hear from journalists, and we love to hear from people that are learning about journalism. So whatever your question is, we probably have an answer, and we can point you in the right direction if we don't. If you're also interested to just find out a little bit more about me, you can find out all of my different social media profiles, including Google Plus and Twitter and Instagram. If you go to about.me/Nicholas Whitaker, you'll find all of my online presence is available on there, and I definitely encourage you to reach out to me. I am definitely not a shy person, so I will definitely say hello. We are going to be going over an enormous amount of information today in a very short period of time. But what I do want to just draw your attention to is this google.com/mediatools site. All of the information that we're going to be talking today about is under this first section, the Gather and Organize section. And this site is available in 16 different languages. So if English is not your first language, there are other languages available that you can read more about this on this site. And obviously there's a lot more information on here than we have time to get into. So if you're curious about what other tools are available, in the second part of the presentation today, we'll be talking a little bit more about the other tools that are available that you can use to tell news stories beyond just search. To start out, one thing that I always like to bring people to is our Google Plus page as well. So if you go to plus Google for Media, you can just type that right into a search bar. It'll bring you to our Google Plus Google for Media page. And what this is our social media profile, which we update regularly with new information about upcoming products, any updates that are happening, any news that's relevant to journalists specifically, but then also where we're going to be in the world, where we're going to be doing trainings, and if we have any events that are going on. So this is a really great place to find out up-to-date information about everything that has to do with the Google for Media team.
And I see that 60 Minutes is in your circles on the Google for Media page.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So over down here on the right-hand side, if you're really interested to see other news organizations and other groups that might be relevant to the types of information that you're interested in, there are an enormous amount of other groups that are already on Google Plus, from newsrooms, as big as CNN and 60 Minutes, a specific show, all the way down to affiliates and individual journalists. So there's a lot of people online that are talking about this within the Google Plus community. So just to start out, we're going to be talking, the bulk of today, we're going to be talking about advanced search, what you can do to get better results out of your search queries beyond just those 10 blue links that you would typically see. And then we'll also take a little bit of time at the end to talk a little bit about other things that you can do beyond Google search, other products that you can get more out of your time online so that you're not spending all of your time just searching for things. So to kick it off, we'll talk a little bit about advanced search. For those of you that were alive in 1998, not all of you might remember back to 1998, but this is what Google search looked like back then. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit since 1998. And in fact, if you go to your search browser of choice and you type in Google in 1998, it's going to bring you to this page and show you what search results looked like back then. We also had an exclamation point on our logo. We were very, very excited about what we were doing back in the late 90s, as I'm sure everybody was. We've gotten rid of that exclamation point. We've added an enormous amount of additional information in its place, though. So when you go, I don't know if anybody remembers one of these. You might have seen some of these in your classroom. This is what we used to use to access the web back in the day. We didn't used to call it searching the web. We actually used to call it surfing the web. And even the language about how we approach search has changed. So when we're looking at information on the internet, it's without question searching these days. If anybody remembers any of these devices, this is very similar to what we've been using over the last several years. Obviously, the devices that we're using are very, very different to access the web. The screens started off very, very small. You only had a few lines to work with, and now it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we all have, or a lot of us have, smartphones in our pockets, which allow us to do an enormous amount of things, including using things like voice search, where Google actually understands conversational speech, and it's going to give you the answers that you're looking for back in a meaningful way. So there's huge steps and progressions in search technology that have happened since 1998. A lot of those happened behind the scenes, but all of those are pointing to one thing, and they're pointing to giving you information in a meaningful way. Part of that, though, is parsing it out in a useful way, so that you get information that's actually useful to you. And on the right-hand side of this slide that we're looking at right now is what's called the knowledge graph. And what the knowledge graph does is it provides a lot of information in one single place. So instead of having to open up a separate window for Google Maps or a separate window for Google Image Search, all of the information that you're interested in is right there in the knowledge graph. Sometimes it'll even give you answers to questions you haven't even thought to ask yet. So depending on whether you're searching for a person, a place, or a thing, these items will actually change depending on what you're searching for. So because right now I'm searching for a place, it's showing me points of interest. It's showing me maybe upcoming events that are around this particular place. It's also showing me related searches that other people have done or searched for in relation to this particular search term. So even a basic Google search query done correctly can have become a very, very powerful research tool. And there's a lot of additional information that's given to you. If you look on the left-hand side of the page, I think a lot of us, sometimes we have the tendency to just select the very first link at the top of the page, and that will give you some good answers from time to time. In this case, we're looking at the Washington Monument. So the first link here is actually really relevant. It's showing me a link from the National Park Service, and it's showing me the Washington Monument. So in that case, it is the best possible link that we can be looking for. But maybe what you're looking for isn't showing up at the very, very first set of links. Maybe I want to find a little bit more of a history about the Washington Monument. Or if I want to find a little bit more about the park that's around the Washington Monument. Some of these links down below might actually be more relevant for my search. So as a search professional, what I would recommend that you do is take a look at the first few links within your search results to make sure that you are getting the results that you're looking for and that you're not just clicking on the first thing that comes by and expecting that to be exactly what you want.
So Nick, you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think you're kind of, going to be touching on this throughout the rest of the presentation, but can you talk a little bit about the difference between searching and surfing the internet?
Yeah, sure. So, I would say like the biggest difference between surfing and searching the internet has a lot to do with how the internet is structured now. If you think back to before 1998, we didn't really have this index of the web. We didn't have an organizational structure. We had things like web links or web rings. So you would go to a website and there'd be a list of other websites that might be interesting to you, but that was really kind of dependent on the person that created the website. Google came in and they really indexed that information. They took a snapshot of everything that's on the internet. They created a structure around it, kind of like a card catalog in a library. Obviously, it's much more advanced than that. But then created some sort of a ranking system to allow you to be able to ask Google a question and then have results provided back to you that are super relevant to that specific question that you asked versus just saying, here's a bunch of stuff that may or may not be relevant to you. And the reason we called it surfing back then is it really was kind of like riding waves, or riding waves of information. Where today it's a little bit more tactical, it's a lot more informational, and it's a lot more purposeful. So let's move on. So I think just to get a better understanding of the knowledge graph will also help you get a better understanding of how search works. And really, the knowledge graph is the next step of progress towards a perfect search engine. And obviously, we're not quite there yet. We don't have a perfect search engine. We're not living in a perfect world, but we're working on it. So very much the way things work in the real world, you go to a new place, you meet a new person, you make a connection between those people and those places and those things. The knowledge graph is really that representation of that type of experience. So it's taking those different connections, those people, places, and things that are out there on the web, and it's drawing relationships between them. So when we do a search, what we're really doing is we're taking a look at those different relationships, and we're getting results back based on that. So in the case that we were just looking at before with the Washington Monument, we're obviously seeing examples of the photos of the Washington Monument. We're seeing maps of that. But there's also an enormous amount of additional information down below that's related to or connected to the Washington Monument. And a lot of times these questions are questions you may not have even thought to ask in the first place. So it's providing that information to you and hopefully making your life a lot easier and a lot faster. So here's another example. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of different ways to search. I think that typing in a question or typing in an example is a very, very easy way of doing that. Maybe what you're really looking for is a definition. Does anybody still have a dictionary today? If you guys still have one in your classroom, a dictionary, it's a book. It's got words in it. You actually search, manually through different pieces of paper to find your words. In this case, what you can do is you can actually just type into Google the name of the word that you're looking for. So in this case, what we're looking at is verification. If I wanted to find more information about what this word means, I could just type verification into the search bar, and here it is. It's showing you down below a dictionary definition. If I clicked on this little arrow here, it's also going to give me even more information about that particular word. So in this case, it's showing me the origin of the word. It's also going to show me different languages. If I wanted to translate this word into a different language and see what it looks like in that language, I could do that. This is my favorite feature down at the bottom in the right-hand corner where it says mentions. And what this is it's called the Ngram viewer. And what this is looking at is the use of this word over time. And as we know, language changes and words change over time. And it's important, I think, to have an understanding of what words mean and what they mean now versus what they meant, say, 10 or 20 years ago. Here's another example. So we're taking a look at this here. This is another feature that you can use, and this doesn't work for everything, but what I would actually recommend that you do is if you ever have two things that you want to compare against one another. Let's take the example of the Washington Monument earlier. Well, I'm a big fan of tall buildings. I travel around the world. I try to visit and take pictures of these large buildings. Oftentimes I have a lot of questions about those different buildings, like how big is the Washington Monument in relationship to the Willis Tower? How would I go about finding that out? Well, one way that you can go about finding that out is to type into the search bar, compare. In this case, it's Sears Tower. They actually changed the name to the Willis Tower, but Google understands both of those. So in this case, I could type in compare Sears Tower or compare Willis Tower and Washington Monument. And it's going to give me a lot of information down here below, including the height and when it was constructed and how many floors it has and so on. And this works for a lot of different things. So you could compare distances, you can compare sizes, you can compare countries, you can compare all kinds of different information. And we don't have a real definitive list of all of the different things that you can compare, but what I would recommend doing is before you go too much further, just try that out. Compare, and then add in a couple different items and see what results show up there for you.
So Nick, how do you know that the information you're getting when you're comparing two things like this is accurate? So like how, where is the information coming from? Where is Google grabbing it from?
That's a great question, and I think, especially when you're dealing with journalism and when you're dealing with news stories, verification and accuracy is really, really important. And this is actually kind of a larger question. Anytime you receive a bit of information, I think questioning the source is always kind of like the first step. Where did this come from? Is it accurate? And Google's always going to tell you where it's got that information from. And a lot of times where this is pulling it from is, one of those first few links that you see at the top of that search page. Those are very similar results that you're going to be pulling from. Yeah, you'll often see it coming from places like Wikipedia. You'll see it coming from places like government websites, stats websites, and other things like that. But in most cases, almost every single case, when you do a search on Google, somewhere within that page is going to tell you where it got those search results. So in the case of the dictionary definition that we got earlier, it's probably going to say something like Webster's Dictionary or Oxford Dictionary, depending on where it's pulling it from.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, of course. All right, so let's see here. I think another way of thinking about this is really taking it from the perspective of a quote from one of our founders. And this was from a very, very long time ago, but he said that a perfect search engine should understand exactly what you mean and give you back exactly what you want. And I think that that's a really good way of looking at the efforts that we've put together with Google Search in the last many years. However, we're not in a perfect world, and we don't have a perfect search engine yet. So a lot of times you have to give additional information to Google to help refine those search results, to get exactly the results that you want, and not a whole bunch of other stuff that's not useful for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few different examples of search refinements that you can use to get better results out of that search experience. So for example, let's say I'm interested in finding information out about the Olympics. Well, I could do a Google search and I could pull up about several dozen different sites and kind of manually surf through those different sites in order to find information. And that's not a very effective way of looking for it. That's the old way. That's called surfing the web. To actually search the web, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use specific search refinements to narrow down just the examples that I'm looking for. So the first one that we're looking at here at the top, this one is called the site modifier, or the site refinement. So by using the site : I can narrow down to just one specific website or one specific type of website. So in the example here, what we're looking at is Olympics. It's my search term. And I'm leaving a space between the search term and the search refinement. So I'm going Olympics space site : and then in this case, I just want to look on the NBC.com website for examples of Olympics being talked about. I could also do the same thing with a type of website. So as opposed to it being a specific site like NBC.com, maybe I'm looking for a government website or an educational website. So a .gov or a .edu, or maybe a nonprofit, nonprofits would be
.org.
.org, thank you, goodness.
Yeah.
So I could look for various different types of sites and again, narrow down my search results. So it gives me less blue links to select from, but they're going to be even more relevant for me because of the search refinements that I'm using.
This is helpful because, I think everyone's had the experience of knowing that they want to search a particular site, whether it's a news organization, the New York Times, or Time.com, or NBC, and realizing they can't find the article that they know was published on that site, and then using Google instead to search it. But having this refinement makes it, that much more specific when you're searching.
Exactly, and this happens all the time. I mean, even on my own website, I lose things. Which exact page did I put that post on? Somebody was looking for something from a few months ago. I know there were some keywords revolving around it, but I don't exactly remember where I put that. It makes it much, much easier to find it that way.
Yeah.
The related feature is another one. So again, if I'm looking at a particular website, Google understands that there's different connections between those different sites and other sites that are available on the web. So again, because I'm looking at those different connections and those defining attributes, I can use this feature called related to see what other websites are similar to the site that I'm looking at, but not the exact same site. So in this case, I'm looking at related : and time.com. And what that's going to do is it's going to show me other sites that are similar to time.com but aren't the exact same website. This is a good way to figure out how Google looks at your website in relationship to the other sites that are out there, and maybe see what your competitors are or what other contemporary sites that are similar to yours are available out there. Another really good way of using this too is, let's say for example I'm looking for stock music or stock photos online. I can use that related feature to find other sites that have similar content on there, but not specifically the site that I'm on at that moment.
Yeah, so this would be useful for students, I guess, if they're researching a particular topic and they found a site that's really useful for that topic, but they want to get other sources. So they want to use multiple sources for their project. So I guess they could use like related : and then the site that had been providing them with lots of good information for their essay or whatever.
Exactly. And I think that with these two different search refinements, you get a lot of better results that than you would normally get. And especially if you're looking for multiple sources and you want to kind of cross-verify or cross-check your data, this is a really easy way to find other sites that might have similar content on them.
Right. I think the word of the day is verification and verify, just like we saw earlier.
Definitely. All right, so here's another tool, and again, there's a lot of different search refinements that we can use, and we're only really scratching the surface in this video talking about them. But if you really want a really good cheat sheet to be able to find all of these search refinements on one place, this is where I would direct your attention to. If you go to Google Advanced Search, and you can just find this by going to Google and typing in Google Advanced Search, and it'll pull up the first link. It'll bring you to this page, and this page is as I mentioned before, a cheat sheet. So if I wanted to find and just going from the top and working my way down, if I wanted to find a search result on a website someplace that contained all of these words, I could just type them into that column right there where it says all of these words. And this works very similarly to what you would do if you just typed in a search query into the normal Google search bar. It's going to take a look at all those different words. It's going to say, okay, where are these on the page? I don't really care if they're in the title or in the body of the article or what have you. I'm just going to provide it to you wherever they're at. Now, that might be too broad. If I want to narrow that down, what I might want to do is look for an exact word or phrase. And you can do that by using quotation marks. So if I encapsulate my search query into quotation marks, Google's only going to look for that search query in that particular order where those words are right next to one another. Which is very, very different than looking at just wherever they show up on the page, regardless of their order and regardless of where they're at. I can also search for any of these words. So if I don't know exactly what the word is that I'm looking for, or maybe I don't know exactly how other people might be posting about a particular topic, like what terminology are they using. Lately, the Ferguson protest was a really big deal in the news. So, am I looking for protest? Am I looking for demonstration? Or am I looking for riot? What type of word am I using in order to surface this content? Using all of those might be a really good way of digging it up. Or what I would look for is any of these words. And there's a really kind of a subtle difference between those two. In this case, what we're looking at is what's called a Boolean search operator. And that search operator is what's called the OR operator, OR. So I'm looking for protest or riot or demonstration, which is different than asking Google to search for riot, protest, and demonstration. I can also look for none of these words. So if I'm getting too many results that are providing me information that I don't really want, I can use the minus symbol to subtract out results that aren't really relevant to me. I can also look for number ranges. I can search in different languages. I can search in different regions. So did this website come from the United States, or did it come from Canada, or did it come from someplace altogether different? When was the site last updated? Is it current? Is it relevant? Oftentimes beyond just verification, having the most accurate and up-to-date information is also really important. So looking at websites that were updated more recently could provide you with better results that way. Here's that site or domain feature. So again, this works very similarly to the site : feature. If I wanted to search just within a particular website or a type of site. Also, where is the term appearing? Is the term appearing in the whole page? Is it on the page title? Is it the URL? Where exactly is that showing up? Safe search is also really important, especially for people who don't want to see perhaps sexually explicit imagery. Safe search will kind of filter out results that you probably shouldn't be taking a look at. Also, reading level. If you wanted to narrow it down to just a 5th grade reading level, you can also narrow down the search results that way. You can also search for file types. So what type of file is it? Is it a document? Is it PDF? Is it an image? And then usage rights. What type of licensing has been applied to this particular piece of material that's online? Can I use this in my story without getting into trouble by somebody? All of these different filters will help you get better search results from your search experience.
That's great. I think that's really going to help students in using Google to just go deeper than choosing the first search result that comes up from typing something into the Google search bar.
Exactly. And the way I would really think about this is, think of yourself as not just somebody that is going online and searching for things and trying to get off very quickly and moving off to something else. I mean, obviously you should be, managing your time, and you should be spending as little time as possible searching for what you're looking for, so you can actually be working on your article or working on your project. But what I would be thinking of it as is, am I working as a search expert? Am I really taking the time to find the results that are specifically relevant for what I'm looking at? And in a lot of cases, it just takes a little bit of digging and a little bit of search refinements to be able to do that. And these two URLs here are, I think, a really great place to go to find better information about how to do this. If you go to google.com/inside search, my colleague, Dr. Dan Russell, has put together a lot of additional information about how search works, how the knowledge graph works, and really what happens behind the scenes when you type in a search query into the search bar. And then if you go all the way to the bottom of that website, you'll find additional tips and tricks that you can use, like the search results or the search refinements that we were just talking about, to help refine those search experiences. And then he's also got this other link, powersearchingwithgoogle.com, and this is a self-paced, self-guided course. And there's a series of multiple different modules that are built in within this. It'll take about 3 or 4 hours to get through the entire thing, so there's a lot of research and a lot of information there. But at the end of that, you could consider yourself a search expert, because you'll know all of the new tips and tricks about how to get better results out of your Google search experience.
That's great. So these are actual courses, online courses students can take, and they're free of charge, and will make them even more informed about searching?
That's right. Exactly.
Great.
Okay, so let's take a little bit of time and talk a little bit about image search as well. And it looks like you guys have already had a course on searching for better images. There's an advanced image search tool mentioned on the Learn Channel video hosted by NLP Chicago program manager Mary Owen, who also was a former Chicago Tribune reporter. And she did a whole piece on photo fact-checking in the digital age, which is super, super important. So if you follow this URL, the newsliteracyproject.org/learnchannel/photo fact-checking digital age, or if you just go to a Google search page and search for that, you'll be able to do that as well. You'll be able to go through and find out a little bit more information about how to verify and vet images online. You'll probably see this come across your desk at one point or another. Somebody sends something out via social media. Turns out that the video was a hoax, and then you have to go back and actually apologize for spreading all this information around that wasn't exactly true. You can save yourself an enormous amount of time and heartache by just doing a little bit more fact-checking before you share that information. So what I want to mention here, though, is searching for images and using an advanced image search tool. So very much like the Google Advanced Search that I was talking about, we also have a tool called Google Advanced Image Search. And what this allows you to do is, in much in the same way as we were talking about earlier, you can find images with all of these words, or this exact word or phrase, any of these words, none of these words. This probably sounds familiar, right? You can also narrow it down by type or image size. What is the aspect ratio of the image? Is it a portrait or a landscape image? What are the colors in the image? Is it a black and white photo? Is it a historical image? Is it a transparent image? In other words, does it have like an alpha channel or a clear background behind it? Or is the predominant color in the image red or blue or whatever that might be? What type of image is it? Is it a photo? Is it a landscape? Is it a face image? What region is it from? What site or domain? There's that safe search option again. Also, what file type is it? Is it a JPEG, a PNG, an animated graphic? And then I think one of the most important features down below here, again, is usage rights. As a photographer, in addition to the work that I do at Google, I'm always very interested to know who's using my photos without permission. Right? So I can go in and I can search for images based on usage rights to make sure that I'm using images that are free to use or share, or free to use or share even commercially. And obviously I'm going to give attribution along with that photo when I share that in my article. But this at least helps you uncover images that are a little bit looser in their guidelines, which you can use in your news article with a little less worry. What else do we have here? So there is...
You know what you were just saying about fair use, Nick, is so important to students, and I think a lot of students are doing mixed media projects, you know, whether it's as part of their news literacy unit that they're doing, or just independently a history project, or, you know, a project about, you know, water's evaporation cycle, for example. And often students are using images from the web and clip art, and I just think it's, you know, it can't be stated enough that students should always be looking for fair use or, you know, Creative Commons images that aren't copyrighted, and so you don't necessarily need the permission of the photographer as long as you credit them, for example. So those are just two terms that students should probably keep in mind, is fair use and Creative Commons. And if you want to know more about either of those subjects, feel free to email the News Literacy Project at info@thenewsliteracyproject.org, and we'd be happy to share our fair use guide with you.
That's great. Yeah, and just another note on that too, you know, as a photographer, I really, really love it when students and journalists get in touch with me. They email me and they say, hey, I really, really liked your photo. I'd like to use it in my piece or my project. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say, yes, by all means, go ahead and use it. Just give me my attribution and let people know that I spent time and effort and energy putting this together. And then you can use it in your piece. And I think a lot of journalists or a lot of content creators feel very much the same way. If they're putting their content out there free to use or share, or free to use or share even commercially, they want you to use it, but they just want to make sure they get the credit where the credit's due.
That's another great suggestion, that you can always just reach out to the creator of the photo or, you know, illustration, and you know, if they're nice like Nick, they'll give you permission to use it without paying anything.
All right, so let's say, for example, I'm looking for different images online. You've probably been to images.google.com before. Let's take a look at an example here. And what we're doing is we're looking for World Cup stadium photos. I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I did travel to Brazil shortly after the World Cup, so I was really interested in what was going on around that particular story. I wanted to see what different World Cup stadiums looked like. So I'm going to type into the search bar World Cup stadiums. And what it's going to bring up for me is a list of exactly what I was asking for, a whole bunch of different World Cup stadiums. But what I want to do is I want to narrow that down. Again, I want to refine my results down to just the bits that are most important here. So I'm going to use this feature called Search Tools. If I click on that, it's going to drop down an additional set of menu options to give me search refinements, so I could search by size, by color, by type. When was it most recently updated? In this case, I just want to find images from the last 24 hours. I can also look for those rights of use again. So this is going to show me Creative Commons, or free to use or share, free to use or share even commercially. And it gives me a really easy way to narrow down those options to just the ones that I really care about, the ones that I really want to look at and use. Another thing that you can do too is you can search by color. So again, as I was mentioning before, I don't know a whole lot about soccer, but I know I saw a game the other day that had people wearing yellow jerseys. So how would I find out more information about that particular game or that particular team? Well, I can narrow down by the color yellow to give me just examples of images of people wearing yellow jerseys. Daria, if I clicked on green, what do you think I would see?
Oh, this is a test. The Jets?
No, not the Jets.
Oh, you mean only in soccer or World Cup? Oh, I see. We're still doing World Cup Stadium.
Just soccer, just World Cup.
You're asking the wrong person. I don't know what we would see.
Well, I'll tell you what you'll see. If you hit the green one, you're going to see the grass of the stadium more than anything, which I think is also a big reason why people don't wear green jerseys, it turns out.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, you got me there. I thought this was some sort of test of my knowledge of soccer, which is, you know, shamefully bad.
No, trust me, that would not be coming from me. I'm not big on soccer either.
At least I know the Jets are green, though, right?
That's true. That's good. Good start. That's football, right?
That is definitely football. Not football as in what Europeans call soccer, but
It's
American
very,
football. Yes.
it's very
They're a New
confusing.
York team.
It's very, very confusing. So yeah, again, you can narrow this down by color. You can also narrow it down, like let's say, for example, I'm just looking for a diagram of something. Let's say, for example, an earthquake. How does an earthquake work? I don't know. I'm going to type into the Google image search, and it doesn't maybe seem like the first place that you would go to find a diagram of something. But again, diagrams are images. So images.google.com, I could type in earthquake diagram, and it's going to show me diagrams of what goes on during an earthquake. I can also look for an animated graphic or a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you say it. An animated graphic is the way I say it. If I wanted to find animated graphics, I just select the type of image, narrow it down by animation, and then it's going to show me animations that I can then add into my story as well, because everyone loves those. Now, again, there's a ton of information that we're not going to have time to get into, and this kind of falls into the category of beyond search and other products to get more out of your time online. And Google has a ton of different products that are available. And again, that website that I mentioned earlier, if you go to google.com/media tools, that first column that we were talking about under the Gather and Organize section, if you look down below here under where it says Gather and Organize, that advanced search is just one bullet point in a long list of additional other tools that are available. And then you can go on and look into the Engage section. You can look at YouTube and Google Plus and Hangouts, which is actually what we're doing right now. You can look at things like the Visualize tab. So if you wanted to look at Google Maps or Google Earth and find ways to use that to tell your stories. If you wanted to look into the Google API and figure out how to really get into code and figure out what you can really do with these tools, really the sky's the limit. And you can make a whole career, actually as I have, on learning how to use these tools to help tell news stories and how to make the world a little bit better informed. Now, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, again, it's a lot of information. Our website, google.com/mediatools. You can reach us at mediatools@google.com if you have any specific questions, or if you just want to reach out and say hi to me, go to my about.me page, about.me/Nicholas Whitaker. You'll find all the different places to reach me on social media. And don't be a stranger. I'd love to talk to you.
That was really great. Thanks a lot, Nick. We really appreciate your shedding some light on how to get the most out of Google searches. And I just want to remind students that, just because you see it on the web doesn't necessarily make it true, doesn't make it untrue either. And always remember to verify and check multiple sources. And we hope that this has been helpful for you. So thank you very much, and keep coming back.
Thanks, everybody.